I did not have sexual relations with that woman, Miss Lewinsky.
Lewinsky opens up as never before about her sexual liaison with Clinton.
In 1998, Monica Lewinsky became the most hunted woman in America after her affair with Bill Clinton. Cameras waited outside her home. Strangers yelled at her on the street. Every late-night host turned her life into a national joke. Then came the money, a $1 million interview, a $500,000 book deal.
I felt terrible. I was scared.
But something unreal happened. The fortune vanished almost instantly. Today, her net worth makes no sense for someone this famous, and the real reason it disappeared is far more shocking than anyone ever realized.
I never expected to feel this way about him.
The fame, the fortune, and the number that never added up. Before anyone cared about Monica Lewinsky's bank account, the world was already tearing apart the most intimate details of her affair with the president. News anchors described the exact locations where the encounters happened. Radio hosts mocked the gifts he gave her. Late-night comedians repeated crude jokes about the physical evidence investigators collected. Evidence so explicit that it became a punchline on national television. The dress, the phone calls, the handwritten notes, the recorded messages, nothing was protected. Companies realized they could make millions off her humiliation. Everyone immediately began cashing out except her. When opportunities finally came her way, they came for one reason only: the scandal attached to her name. Yet when everything was counted, the numbers told a different story. The public assumed the scandal made her rich, but her net worth never reflected the scale of the media frenzy she endured. Monica later explained the disconnect with painful clarity. She said, "People thought the money meant safety. It didn't. It made everything more dangerous." At one point, she earned more than she had ever dreamed possible, yet she felt smaller and more vulnerable than ever. But her financial unraveling did not start with interviews or book deals. It started much earlier, in a childhood filled with expectations, pressure, and emotional fractures that shaped how she navigated power long before the world ever knew her name. Monica's early lessons learned. Monica Lewinsky had a childhood most children could only dream of, one filled with luxury, comfort, and endless vacations. On the surface, everything looked perfect. Her family's wealth gave her stability, access, and opportunities most young people never experienced. But beneath that glossy exterior were the early warning signs of the emotional patterns that would later shape her relationships, her decisions, and ultimately, her financial downfall. In 1987, when Monica was 14, her parents divorced. The separation was loud and bitter, and it did not simply end a marriage. It broke apart the stability she had known all her life. Arguments became a regular part of the house, not just in the background, but woven into the daily routine. Monica remembered nights when she pushed her earphones in as tightly as possible, hoping the music would block out the shouting. She remembered writing small notes to her mother and sliding them under the door, asking her to please stop crying. She also remembered pretending to be asleep whenever either parent came into her room because she didn't want to see the darkness and pain in their eyes. The sense of safety she had relied on vanished almost overnight. She started checking the locks on the doors twice before bed because the instability inside the house made the whole world feel unsafe. Therapy became routine, a weekly reminder that something inside the family had cracked. Monica would sit in the waiting room, flipping through children's magazines even though she was too old for them, because the bright cartoons were the only thing that didn't remind her of the chaos waiting at home. During those years, Monica began absorbing lessons that would shadow her into adulthood. She learned that love could feel conditional, something offered only when she performed or behaved in the way others expected. She learned that approval could disappear without warning. And over time, she developed a habit she later admitted became a survival tool, using dishonesty not to deceive others maliciously, but to protect herself emotionally in an environment where affection and fear constantly overlapped. These early confusions between power, attention, and safety became part of her internal wiring. These patterns didn't just shape her relationships, they shaped her financial future. Monica grew up learning to seek stability from people who held authority, even when the price of that dependence was high. It created the perfect conditions for others to gain influence over her choices, her opportunities, and eventually, her earnings. And this is where the next chapter of her life began to unfold, seeking validation through older authority figures. Monica joined a small, close drama group at Beverly Hills High School. There, she met a teacher who became a central figure in her emotional life. He noticed her, believed in her, and encouraged her in ways that she had rarely experienced from family or peers. Monica trusted him completely and relied on his guidance. When he died suddenly, it was a shock that left her shaken and confused. The loss felt larger than just the death of a teacher. It was a loss of direction, safety, and someone she thought she could depend on. So, when she enrolled at a different school at 19, she made sure to stay attached to her favorite teacher. Monica entered a secret relationship that would dominate much of her early adult life. The relationship was with a former drama teacher. He was married, significantly older, and held authority over her. The relationship lasted nearly 5 years. It was hidden, complicated, and emotionally dangerous. When Monica enrolled at Lewis and Clark College in Oregon, he followed her there. His family moved with him, and Monica attended the same campus while interacting with his wife, keeping the relationship completely secret. Friends later described it as deeply unhealthy, warning that it exposed her to emotional and psychological risks. At the time, Monica did not see it that way. She believed she was making her own choices, unaware of how strongly her childhood patterns were influencing her behavior. Monica graduated college with honors in 1995, proud but exhausted. Her dream was federal service. Monica wanted to work for the government. She wanted to contribute to something larger than herself. She wanted to feel useful and important. Monica believed she had learned the lessons she needed. She believed she was ready for the challenges of Washington, D.C., but the city, the politics, and the people Monica encountered would test her in ways she could never have anticipated. The White House, isolation, and a power imbalance. In June 1995, Monica secured an internship at the White House. The position was unpaid, but it came through political connections that her family and mentors had helped her make. Monica was eager and proud to have the opportunity. At 22, she felt this was a step toward the kind of life she had worked so hard to achieve. Monica wanted to serve, to be useful, to prove herself in the world of power and politics she had studied and dreamed about for years. She was assigned to the office of the Chief of Staff. The environment was intimidating. The offices were filled with authority, hierarchy, and strict rules that were rarely explained. Every action mattered. Every word mattered. Monica observed quickly that some people could bend the rules, while others could be punished for small mistakes. The office ran like a carefully controlled machine. Everything seemed orderly on the surface, but underneath there was tension, competition, and constant pressure. Then, in November 1995, the government shut down. Most staff members were sent home, leaving only a skeleton crew to manage essential tasks. Interns like Monica were asked to remain. The building, once crowded, emptied out. The atmosphere changed. Without the usual crowds and constant activity, silence replaced structure. The normal rules that kept everyone at a distance shifted. People noticed each other more. Interactions became more personal. Proximity replaced professionalism. The president began appearing more frequently in the West Wing. Monica still knew was suddenly in close quarters with the most powerful man in the world. She was 22 years old. He was 49. Their interactions began to increase quickly. Others in the office noticed. Some felt discomfort. There were attempts to move Monica out of the West Wing entirely, but the dynamics of her role combined with her determination to succeed kept her in the building and in proximity to the president. On November 15, 1995, Monica stayed late at the office. She worked into the evening as schedules aligned. That night would mark the beginning of a secret relationship, one that was private and deeply complicated. Over the next 18 months, there were 9 confirmed encounters between Monica and the president. During that time, gifts were exchanged, phone calls were made, and some communications were recorded. Monica became emotionally attached. She believed the connection was different from anything she had experienced before. She believed it was unique, protective, and real. For a while, that belief gave her a sense of purpose and attention she had craved throughout her life. But that belief, like so many others she had held, would later break apart completely. Separation, surveillance, and a trap closing in. In April 1996, Monica Lewinsky was transferred to the Pentagon. On paper, the move was described as a routine change in her internship placement. But in reality, the transfer was meant to separate her from the president and reduce the risk of further encounters. It was a quiet attempt to put an end to a situation that had already raised concerns among staff. But the relationship did not end immediately. Despite the distance, their interactions continued. The secrecy remained, and Monica still believed in the connection and held on to the sense that it was special. She did not yet understand how dangerous the situation had become. Monica did not yet understand how much control and power were in the hands of others who could manipulate the story. By May 1997, the relationship ended abruptly. There was no warning, no explanation that made sense to her. One day it existed, and the next, it was gone like the wind. The suddenness left Monica stunned, confused, and emotionally shattered. She did not know how to process it. She felt used, abandoned, and humiliated. So she confided in a co-worker who seemed trustworthy. This person appeared patient and sympathetic, asking questions that encouraged her to explain everything. Monica believed she could speak freely, believing that her words were safe. She believed that she had found someone who could provide support, but she was wrong. The co-worker was secretly recording every conversation. Over 20 hours of private discussions were captured without her knowledge. Monica had no idea that her trust had been betrayed. She spoke openly, believing she was safe, while sharing details that would later be used against her. By early 1998, the recordings were handed over to investigators, and investigation quickly began. At one point, Monica was asked to sign a sworn statement denying the relationship. She did not do it to save herself. She did it to protect someone else. Monica did not fully understand the legal implications of what she was signing. The act placed her at enormous risk. By following instructions she thought were meant to protect others, she was exposing herself to consequences that could be devastating. Check this part: public humiliation and psychological collapse. On January 26, 1998, the president publicly denied the relationship.
I did not have sexual relations with that woman.
He chose his words carefully. Every phrase was precise, every sentence was measured. Monica's name was reduced to a short, dismissive reference, almost as if she did not exist beyond a passing mention. The intention was clear. The denial was not about the truth. It was about control, power, and shaping the story before anyone else could. The media reacted instantly. The news spread like wildfire. Monica's name was everywhere. Headlines made her unavoidable. Television cameras appeared at every corner of her life. Journalists and photographers followed her relentlessly. Comedy shows turned her life into material for jokes night after night. Every detail of her appearance was scrutinized. Every gesture, every outfit, every movement became public property. Her character was flattened and reduced to a simple caricature. Officials in the government and the White House painted Monica as unstable. They implied that she could not be trusted. The narrative became reality in the eyes of the public. Monica became trapped in her own home. The world outside felt too dangerous. Her mother stayed beside her constantly. She watched the doors, the windows, and the people outside. She tried to protect her daughter from a public storm that no one could control. Later, Monica described this period as nearly unbearable. She was surrounded by wealth and comfort, but none of it mattered. She was confined, visible, and powerless. In July 1998, Monica testified under full legal immunity. She was pulled into the case because independent counsel Ken Starr was examining whether President Bill Clinton had committed crimes during a separate legal matter known as the Paula Jones sexual harassment lawsuit. Paula Jones had accused President Clinton of making an unwanted sexual advance toward her when he was governor of Arkansas. Because of this lawsuit, the president was required to give a sworn deposition, and during that deposition he denied having any sexual relationships with employees in the White House. Monica was drawn into the lawsuit because Paula Jones's legal team had heard rumors about the relationship and believed Monica might have information that could support their claims. Monica attempted to avoid testifying by signing an affidavit that denied the relationship. Ken Starr was interested in this because he needed to determine whether the president's denial in the Paula Jones case was truthful. He also needed to know whether Monica's affidavit was accurate or whether it had been influenced by the president or by people acting on his behalf. When Linda Tripp's secret recordings became public, Starr believed that the recordings raised questions about whether Monica had withheld the truth in order to protect the president. He also believed the recordings suggested that steps may have been taken to hide evidence connected to the relationship. Starr saw this as important because it could show a pattern of dishonesty by the president that directly affected the Paula Jones case. If the president had encouraged Monica to deny the relationship, or if he had taken steps to keep their interactions hidden, Starr believed this could reflect on the president's overall credibility. It could also show that the president was willing to protect himself at the expense of the truth. Starr's goal was to investigate whether the president had lied under oath in the Paula Jones lawsuit, whether he had influenced Monica's affidavit, and whether he had taken any actions that could be viewed as attempts to obstruct justice. Federal prosecutors made it clear that Monica's actions could expose her to charges like perjury. With immunity, she finally had the chance to explain everything without fear of criminal consequences. During her testimony, Monica confirmed the relationship and described the secrecy that surrounded it. She explained why she had tried to protect the president and how overwhelmed she had felt as the situation spiraled into a national investigation. She told investigators she never intended to obstruct justice or deceive the country, and that most of her decisions had been shaped by fear, loyalty, and a need to survive the pressure she felt from all sides. After she finally told the full truth, she received legal immunity. This meant that prosecutors could no longer charge her with perjury or with filing a false sworn statement, even if her earlier affidavit had been inaccurate. The legal danger ended the moment that protection was granted, but nothing else in her life changed. The public had already judged her long before she had the chance to speak for herself, and telling the truth did not soften their reaction. The ridicule continued, the loss of privacy remained, and the humiliation followed her into every part of her daily life. And when the money arrived, it did not bring relief. It brought new costs and danger. The real reason the money never stayed. Monica's money came in quickly, almost violently. The first major payment arrived in February 1999, when she sat down for her interview with Barbara Walters on national television. This interview was the first time Monica spoke publicly about her relationship with the president, her role in the investigation, and the emotional and personal fallout she had been living with for more than a year. It was a primetime special, and the network paid her around $1 million because they knew the entire country would be watching. The interview reached millions of viewers and became one of the most talked about broadcasts of the decade. Shortly afterward, she signed a book deal for Monica's story, reportedly worth approximately $500,000, which would be over $900,000 in today's value. From the outside, it looked like a sudden fortune. Almost overnight, Monica had access to sums that would have been unimaginable to most people her age. But the money did not stay. It began leaving almost as quickly as it arrived. Legal fees took massive portions of what she earned. Lawyers, accountants, and advisors required large payments for their services. Personal security became a constant necessity, with guards and surveillance to ensure her safety from a public that had become hostile. Therapy continued for years. Later, Monica admitted to close sources, "I wasn't spending to live well, I was spending to survive." Every security system, therapists, lawyers, was a shield. Job opportunities quietly disappeared. The offers that remained often demanded humiliation, control, or exposure she was unwilling to give. Monica refused contracts worth more than $10 million, deals that might have transformed her finances but required too high a personal cost. In one of her most devastating reflections, she said, "I realized I could either keep my dignity or keep the money." Perhaps the most painful truth came when she later admitted, "I walked away from fortunes because I couldn't afford what they wanted in return." This was not a sudden fall from wealth. It was a constant weighing of survival against opportunity. Even business ventures failed, not due to lack of quality, but because the world refused to separate her from the scandal. Reclaiming control and redefining value. In 2014, Monica Lewinsky returned to the public eye with a personal essay published in Vanity Fair. She had remained silent for years, avoiding the spotlight that had once consumed her, but this time she chose to speak on her own terms. The essay was direct and vulnerable. She revealed the depth of her suffering when she admitted, "I was the first person to have my reputation completely destroyed worldwide through the internet." These lines hit readers with a level of honesty they had never heard from her. She described the humiliation that followed her for decades and explained how the scandal had left her unable to get jobs, build relationships, or reclaim a sense of safety. She explained that friendships, dating, and even simple routines were shaped by the fear that someone would recognize her and judge her before she said a word. One of the most heartbreaking details came when she admitted that her mother was so afraid Monica might harm herself during the height of the scandal that she made her shower with the bathroom door open. Within the first week, more than 2 million people read it online, and it was shared across social media hundreds of thousands of times. Readers discussed specific passages, especially the moment she wrote, "I am determined to have a different ending to my story." For the first time in her adult life, the public attention felt less cruel. People listened differently. Even Monica herself was taken aback by how much the world had changed and how much they were willing to listen. In 2015, she took the stage for a public talk that reached millions of people. The audience was no longer looking to ridicule her. They were listening. Monica spoke openly about the damage caused by public shaming and the way society had treated her as a symbol instead of a human being. She reframed her story around accountability, resilience, and survival. Monica did not shy away from her past mistakes, but she refused to let her story be defined by them. Monica began participating in media not as a subject to be exploited, but as a producer and creator. She decided what could be shared, what could be emphasized, and what was private. She worked to ensure that her story was told accurately and responsibly. By 2025, Monica's net worth stood at around $1.5 million. Every dollar came from work she chose and controlled. Unlike the rapid, violent influx of money in the late 1990s, this was deliberate and earned. Make sure to click the cards on screen if you enjoyed. Thanks for watching. See you in the next one.